Hello everyone, I'm Adam Ebert and welcome to Can I Teach It, a show that explores the teachability of pop culture across mediums. Today's episode is on the film In the Heights.
This book is filled with beautiful prose. This film's third act's a bit on the nose. This album features just one hit, but can I teach it?
With me, Mr. Ebert. So for some context, Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights debuts on Broadway in 2008. It opens to massive critical and commercial success, capping off its run by winning Tony Awards for Best Musical and Best Original Score. Miranda then takes the success of In the Heights, and that allows him access to a range of TV, film, and Broadway projects. A few years later, he releases a small musical called Hamilton, and that catapults him to superstardom, and a lot of the rest is history. In terms of Miranda's two major works, In the Heights is not as lyrically strong or narratively cohesive as Hamilton, but it is nonetheless a significant work that you should consider bringing into your classroom. I've used both Hamilton and In the Heights in my classroom in the past. An early performance of the opening track from Hamilton was something that was featured in our pre-AP English 1 curriculum at our school. I was also a part of the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History's initiative to teach students about Alexander Hamilton and other founding fathers who were featured in the musical Hamilton. There was some curriculum that ultimately culminated in students performing their own original work on stage before a performance of the show. I've also used the song 96,000 from In the Heights as part of a media representation unit, and I'll discuss that more shortly. With that being said, let's talk about how would you teach it. In terms of execution, I think the way that I would teach In the Heights is similar in concept to the way that I would teach City of Ghosts, in that you are discussing the culture and community of a specific location, in addition to having students explore their own communities. Another option would be to have students explore how certain characters develop over the course of the film. So actually, let's start with that. So option number one is charting character development. In the Heights features a massive cast of characters who all have their individual hopes and dreams for their future. Some of those dreams are realized by the end of the narrative, and some of those dreams fade into obscurity. So obviously your objective would be to have your students pick a character or characters and chart how those characters develop over the course of the film's narrative. That can lead into a nice 3 to 5 paragraph essay in which they detail the changes or lack thereof in characters. It's nice, it's neat, it's simple. Option number two, something I'm calling analyzing hopes and dreams, is a little bit more expansive. And if you want to streamline your viewing of the film, you don't want to watch the whole thing, I think you can really focus on 3 numbers. The opener In the Heights, 96,000, and Paciencia y Fe. Start off this mini unit by discussing questions like, what is a community? What defines a community? How can the dreams of a community define that place? The opening number features most, if not all, of the main characters and works as a nice introduction for all of them. Watching that will give your students a nice foundation of information to work with as you look at the other 2 numbers. Now, I've mentioned that a piece from the film that I've taught with before is a track from the middle of the film called 96,000. It's an I Want song in which the characters detail what they would do if they won $96,000 in the lottery. As they express what they do with the cash, they are also expressing their wants and needs, their dreams for the future. So something you can do with this song is kind of have it be the centerpiece of a nice little mini unit. Then have your students break down what each character would do with that $96,000 and then discuss what that then says about the community. What are the dreams of that community? The wants, the needs, and the limitation. This then transitions into the next number, Paciencia y Fe, or Patience and Faith, which allows the character of Abuela Claudia to express her specific immigrant experience in the US in the mid to late 20th century. Claudia details her life as a young person in Cuba who relocates with her family to New York, encountering discrimination, but hoping for something more and something better. Paciencia y Fe is a great companion to 96,000 in particular, but also provides a nice capstone for the unit as it focuses on one particular character. So ultimately, I think those 3 numbers would work really well. From there, I would have students look at poems from the Breakbeat Poets collection, Latinx. A handful of poems from that collection all touch upon the concept of el sueñito, or the little dream. Have students draw connections between those poems and what is expressed in the Heights, detailing how each of them express something about the unique dreams and perspectives of the individuals in those stories. I think the following poems from that collection could be used for comparative analysis within the Heights. Javier Zamora's Instructions for My Funeral. Mario Jose Pagan Morales' Fiao/Rafi. Noel Quinones's Ode to New Money. Yesenia Montilla's Muse Found in a Colonized Body. Sammy Ortega's Becoming a City Scent. Denise Froman's A Queer Girl's Ode to the Piragüero. Another body of work that you can consider is the artwork of Scent Rock, a Chicago-based visual artist. Scent Rock's work prominently features a figure in a bird mask along with the models Stay Free or Stay Fly. Joseph Perez, the artist known as Scent Rock, noted in a 2017 interview that the bird mask is symbolism to freedom or escapism. The ability to fly away is something I always use my art to do, get away or escape. I think a big part of it started from how I grew up. Seeing family members and friends locked up throughout my childhood always inspired me to stay free. Perez also highlighted the need for public art in saying, public art speaks to all people, from kids walking home to older grandparents, to keep the imagination open. Can you imagine living in a place with no art? How do people even create or have identities? Seeing public art makes people think outside of the box. Whether or not people realize it, it's giving them permission to think outside the box. The ideas of Scent Rock here could easily relate to the decisions that the main character Usnavi makes in featuring aspects of his life and community in the bodega that he runs. I think where you wrap this all up, though, is by having your students look at their own community. What does their community want? What does their community need? What defines their community? And how is art expressed in their community? Have them do some research about where they live and bring that research back into a Socratic seminar-style discussion. Or better yet, have them go out into their communities and push for more art to be featured where they live. Coordinate with local officials to have art take more precedence in central locations. Going along with what Scent Rock noted, art can help members of a community reflect about the place they live and even create their own art that tells their own stories. So as you consider the options I've presented, let's talk about whether or not you should teach it. So for the question of should I teach it, I think there's a big caveat and a small caveat to whether or not you should. First, the small caveat. Y'all know your students better than anyone else. Will they like this musical or find it bogus? Will they vibe with Lin-Manuel's nerd rap or think it's whack? A major goal with bringing pop culture into your classroom is to engage students in complex learning experiences. And if some of the musical aspects don't vibe with your students, maybe steer clear of this. The bigger caveat, and where things get a little bit more complicated, aligns with representation. The diverse cast and representation featured within this film is something that has been celebrated widely, but with some calling for a higher standard of representation. There has been some controversy surrounding the lighter-skinned actors who have been cast in major roles, where darker-skinned actors have been relegated to background and supporting roles. This is an instance where perhaps we should evaluate the level of accurate representation and depiction that a piece of media is doing, especially as we're bringing it in front of our students. Obviously, everything has a specific creator or creators at the helm, and that often dictates the level or kind of representation. But things made in the Hollywood studio system can still fall prey to systemic racism in their casting, production, and editing. Perhaps that is something that might deter you from teaching with this film, or something that you could bring as a discussion point with your students. With those two things being said, I think you should teach within the Heights, only to use it as a stepping stone to other Latinx-centric texts. The musical can serve as an introduction of concepts and ideas, connecting the new to the known as you move into more complex texts like the poems featured in the Latinx collection or the artwork of Scent Rock. All right, people, let's wrap things up. All right, folks, so something I wanted to do at the end of this episode is to shout out some folks who have made this show happen. While I shoot and edit these videos on my own, I am no island in other aspects of production. First and foremost, I'd like to shout out Chris and Jensen Ragland for creating my theme song and interstitial music. Chris has been one of my best friends for the longest time, and the music that he and his wife constructed has helped shape what this show is from the very beginning. Next up are two of my teacher friends, Eric Kallenborn and Ronell Whitaker. These guys have inspired me from the moment I met them. They have helped guide me as a young teacher, and they have inspired me to create my own YouTube channel after they did the same. I'll link their channels in the description below. For some of the drone footage that I featured in an episode, I want to thank my brother, Eric Ebert, and his company, Falcon Aerial Photography, for adding some dynamic footage to past and some future segments. Finally, the person I'd like to shout out the most is my best friend and fellow teacher, Adan Alvarado. That dude has been featured in some segments, has helped me film key parts of my intro and other parts of my videos, and has just been an amazing contributor to Can I Teach It? Adan is an incredibly kind and talented educator and has been nice enough to share his talents and expertise with me as I've developed some episodes. All of these folks have helped make this show happen, and I am incredibly grateful for all of them. With that being said, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Click that bell button to get notified when new episodes drop. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Adam Abort and on Instagram at Can I Teach It. But until next time, happy teaching.